The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
All right, quick turn for the Anik and Florian podcast, episode 339. It is Sunday, March 6th, 2022. It's 9:05 a.m. Pacific, and I feel like it is, but I'm back on the East Coast. My guy from the PFL Challenger Series, BattleBots, was on in the hotel room, by the way, in Las Vegas for me. You're all over the goddamn joint. Good
I tell you, I'm so sorry to all the people out there who are watching television right now. It is great to see you, my friend. Have a beautiful day here in North Carolina. We had some great fights, and let's go.
It's amazing that you ended up in North Carolina. I am filled with envy. All right, so a lot to get to today. We will recap UFC 272, of course, which just expired a few hours ago. Ray Longo scheduled to join us in 15 minutes. So we'll see if he's there on the screws 12:20. And we have predictions with our man Brian Petrie coming up in the main event challenge. Actually, 6 of them for UFC Fight Night. Santos versus Ankalaev. I may have that backwards, but either way, banging fight card coming up this weekend. But Ken Flo, that week was just insane. Like, I don't know how I feel about my performance, and thankfully we don't have to talk about that today, but like I was on fumes by the time I got to Saturday. I just think there was so much emotion for everybody involved, and obviously these shows are fairly arduous for me to prepare to begin with, but let us talk about the fight. It was Colby Covington over Jorge Masvidal by unanimous decision, 49-46, 50-44, and 50-45, and you know, I can't believe he's not on the pound-for-pound list. I got to think a win like this maybe gives him some consideration. What were your thoughts on Covington handling yet another emotional rivalry grudge match with very, with flying colors?
Well, you did kill it, my friend. So, to go back to your point before, it was awesome. Awesome show. So, yeah, I can imagine. Listen, there was so much venom between these guys, a lot of security around all the time. So when you have this genuine rivalry, you have to promote it. And I'm sure they had a bunch of interviews and press conferences and different events, going over all this stuff. So, listen, I think that there was a lot of emotions heading into it. I thought both men did a good job of controlling it for the most part. Colby does what Colby does, and he went out there and executed beautifully. It was the perfect game plan, especially against someone like a Jorge Masvidal, where you get in their face, you let them carry the weight, and you slow them down over time. And, Jorge is most dangerous early in a fight. The first 10 to 12 minutes, you really have to be very careful. And once Colby kind of crossed that threshold, it seemed to only get worse. Jorge had his moments, of course, but it was Colby wrestling, grinding out each and every round, making Jorge work infinitely more than he was. And I think that was the approach. It was a smart approach, and Colby went out there and truly delivered.
I have so many things to say about Covington's performance. I have some fairly pointed question, I guess, on Masvidal's performance, because I thought there were some things that maybe he could have done a little bit differently. But for Colby Covington, obviously the chin held up because I think the most seminal blow on either side was landed by Jorge Masvidal. But I just want to get your thoughts on the overall package, the conditioning, right? The commitment to this craft, 365 days a year from Colby Covington, his will to win, last guy on the roster who'd be looking for a way out if even he was hurt significantly in a fight, which doesn't happen all that often. And all of that is just so colored by the persona. And I think that's part of the reason he's not on the pound for pound list. But what do you make of this Covington package and what I believe is one of, if not the best gas tanks in MMA history?
Gosh, there's a lot there. Similar to Conor McGregor, you get caught up in all the talk and all the stuff that's on the outside, on the periphery, that kind of gets you distracted. And you think about all the things about, him talking trash and being disrespectful and, pushing your buttons and all that stuff. And you forget that he's an excellent fighter. You forget that he's very methodical in his approach and he's very calculated. He's not, this chaotic character, right? So, yeah, I think a lot of that is deception, right? And it works very well for him. But as you mentioned, he's a very hard worker. That is clear. You're not able to put that kind of pace on your opponent if you're not working hard. And that's a huge part of his arsenal. His conditioning is like a submission, either literal or mental type submission, where you just check out. You're like, I cannot keep up the pace with this individual. Colby has that kind of conditioning. He has that kind of pace. And we talked about this before. You have to know who you are as a fighter, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Colby is not the most technical guy. He's not a guy who's going to wow you with all this flash. What he's going to wow you with is pressure, conditioning, pacing, not stopping, and just always finding another gear. So he was mixing up his punches really well. They were effective enough to let him get to a clinch position and pin Jorge up against the cage, which I'd like to talk about later as well.
Yeah, we will talk about the fence stuff, and I'll make a note to get back to it. JC Santana, whom you know, one of the strength and conditioning coaches that works with Gilbert Burns that I work with down here in South Florida, talks about genetic bandwidth. And Colby Covington talked about this third long. I mean, this week he mistakenly called it a second long, I believe. But recognizing it very early on cardiovascularly as a kid, as an athlete. And I ended up being a soccer goalie because I didn't have that third long, and they stuck me on midfield. And I was like, dude, I'm gassing. Now, you played midfield at Boston College, and I know you had a good resting heart rate. Did you sense early on that you had better wind than other athletes at a young age?
I guess, I kind of had to work for it, but there was a certain point. I mean, I had a lot of energy as a kid, but I think I had to work to get there. And over time, just from playing midfield and running miles and miles and miles, eventually I pushed through a barrier where I really would not get tired. And I found that even through training and stuff like that, cardio wise, maybe not anaerobically, but aerobically, I had the ability to go a long time for sure.
Because you hear Daniel Valverde and Cesar Carnero just talk about this otherworldly energy that Colby Covington has during fight weeks, right? And he's expending all this energy with the media all the time, and he's totally locked in on what his audience is, and bringing up the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott when he does something with Stephen A. Smith, and yet he is just busting out with energy in training. And I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that he's fighting at his natural weight, but I think a lot of it is just the 24/7, 365 commitment. I think it goes without saying that even though Masvidal is the former lightweight, that it was a more challenging Friday morning getting to that number for Jorge than it was for Colby.
I think that's accurate. Obviously he's taking the approach of a professional. He's training a lot. You and I called maybe his first fight, at least a lot of his early fights.
Yeah.
And we certainly saw a development in his game. That takes consistency, and that's absolutely what Colby is doing in the background. Yeah.
All right. So I'm not an analyst, so I'm watching Jorge Masvidal in this fight, and he seems to, I don't know if he's using the fence as a crutch in terms of his takedown defense, not wanting to be taken down in the middle of the octagon, but it seemed like there were plenty of times where he could have reset and tried to get it closer to that napkin area in the middle of the octagon. And I don't know, he just wanted to play on the outside, and I thought it set things up for Colby. I don't know. What else do you have on the fence and Masvidal and all that?
John, I think you nailed it. It's a double-edged sword, that fence. It could be your friend or it could be your enemy. It's your enemy in that it allows your opponent to pin you up against there. It limits your space in which you move. But also, it can be a great way to keep you upright. You can lead against the fence. You can be a little bit more efficient. And I think Jorge was waiting for Colby to kind of come forward and catch him, and always had that fence behind him, which would keep him upright, where he can lean on it to keep him from being taken down. But after a certain point, right, it's not working. You're getting taken down anyway. Circle to the middle of the cage where you'll have more space and can move around. You could sprawl and try something a little bit different. Because when he was getting taken down, there were times where he would turn towards the fence, but he was still being controlled. He was still being pinned down there. So it wasn't working. So yeah, I would have liked to see him move to the center of the cage a little bit more, where he could be a little bit more dynamic. But I don't know, John. It's tough. In the Usman fight, I certainly saw it, perhaps in the fight before that a little bit at times. But what I'm seeing, and maybe I'm seeing this incorrectly, but I'm seeing not maybe a flat-footed Jorge Masvidal, but what I'm seeing is a guy that might be actually slowing down a little bit. He's been fighting a long time, right? And I hate to say that, oh, this is a physical thing and he's getting older and blah, blah. But that's a real thing. And I saw a guy that Jorge used to have amazing reaction time. And to me, he seemed a lot faster in previous fights than he did in the last couple fights.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting knocked out by Usman doesn't help. Getting hit in training doesn't help. He's been doing that for many, many years. So that was a little concerning. And he gets a little too upright. So if your stance isn't very wide, if you do get hit, you're going to get caught off balance very easily. It's easy for you to go in and wrap up your legs, and it allows you to kind of lean back a little bit. But in order to do that, you need phenomenal reaction time. Like we see that from Israel Adesanya, and that concerns me. The difference is Israel Adesanya still has very quick reaction time and excellent eyes, whereas Masvidal's getting hit by Colby Covington, who's, again, made improvements in his striking, but he's not known as a striker.
Sure.
And that's what concerns me for Jorge moving forward, is still has a tremendous amount of experience and skill and intelligence as a fighter, but his reaction time isn't what it used to be. And when you relied on that for a long time, that's concerning.
I think that's fair. And we talked a little bit with George in the fighter meeting about how long he's going to stick around. And he just feels like the reviews in training are very favorable right now. And he feels like he can still compete at the highest level. But I do think that's a good read by you. And I do think that, you know, maybe this fight will crystallize some things for him. But more on what is in the immediate future for Jorge Masvidal. Certainly there are some big paychecks in his future that he is going to realize. But on the fight as a whole, it was the fight of the night, and maybe it wasn't the fight of the night for me, but I just don't understand some of the lack of appreciation for the grappling and the wrestling. And maybe I should, because there was a time in my life when I was a boxing journalist where I wasn't talking shit about MMA necessarily, but I didn't have an appreciation for it. Now I just really enjoy it. I don't want them to separate them from the fence even, right? And I don't know, people who didn't appreciate this main event, like I'm not sure what to tell you at this point, except to maybe just go watch kickboxing. You know?
Yeah, listen, and again, it's like you got to know who these fighters are. You got to know what Colby's strengths are. You have to have a certain amount of education about them and what they do well. And I think, you know, they saw all the venom being spit back and forth between these fighters, and they expected them to just, you know, stand in the middle of the octagon and just start trading. That's not what a tactical fight is all about. These guys, you know, talk a lot of trash. They do not like each other, but they're also very smart fighters, and they're not going to just take any approach or just fight to satisfy the crowd. That is not the sign of an intelligent fighter, in my opinion. So, yeah, you know, the getting appreciation for grappling, it's very different. And you know, you have to have an appreciation for what these guys are doing as far as control and how they utilize the floor to their advantage and how they eat up that space to take that away from your other opponent. You know, both guys, it's just like a war. It's a battle for resources, and that has to do with space and the floor. And I thought Colby did a great job of controlling that action and getting Jorge to carry his weight. It was an efficient and effective performance.
And I'm not saying Colby is Khabib Nurmagomedov on the ground, but it's very nuanced down there. Just watching him move his feet, the subtleties to his control game is pretty impressive. There was just a lot of action right in front of the broadcast booth, and I came away very impressed with Colby Covington. So Dana White said at the post-fight press conference, you know, that Colby deserves pound-for-pound consideration, and that's probably overdue. And I would submit to you that he has wins over 3 former UFC champions, Tyron Woodley, Rafael Dos Anjos, and Robbie Lawler. Granted, when he fought Tyron Woodley, maybe you could argue that he was a shell of himself, but that is neither here nor there. He fought a prime RDA for a belt and won a belt, right? But listen to this, Flo. These are the guys in the welterweight top 15 that Colby Covington has not faced. And it's basically fucking all of them, right? Because obviously Lawler, Woodley, and RDA, just to name a few, are no longer there. Kamaru Usman's the champion, right? But other than Masvidal, bro, he hasn't fought any of these guys. Now, he's calling out Dustin Poirier. I don't think Poirier is going to have an appetite for that fight. But listen to all these fucking names that Colby has not fought in the welterweight top 10. And as I'm going through the list, top 15, think about some of these matchups and how stylistically not that easy some of them would be. Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad. You think he's controlling Bilal on the ground like this? You know, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Neil Magny, Sean Brady, Michael Chiesa, Khamzat Chimaev, and then it goes on from there. Jeff Neal, Li Jingliang, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Like, there are so many compelling matchups for Colby Covington at 170 pounds. I mean, I've been saying for 2 years, my dream fight in any division is Covington versus Khamzat Chimaev, you know, but a Covington Burns fight, I think, is compelling / competitive. Bilal Muhammad, of course, Luque. I mean, right? Like, I understand we're putting Colby Covington on a pedestal that I think he belongs on, but correct me if I'm wrong. Those aren't cupcake fights, any of those really.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of it has to do with, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the brilliance of Colby Covington to skip over a lot of those guys because, you know, he really has been like a sniper. And again, this is the value of knowing who you want to fight and maximizing the use of the microphone, right? And I know that for guys who are, you know, strictly focused on I'm going to fight and I'm going to train, that's my main thing. That's fine, but don't complain about not making a whole lot of money in this game. Colby always has an agenda. He knew exactly who he wanted to call out now. And that's why he skipped over all these guys, because he's been calling out these guys in every interview that he gets. He calls out whoever's at the top of the food chain. You know, why would I go through these guys if I can skip the line and go right to the top of the food chain? And he's doing that with his mic skills. You hate him or love him, whatever it is. It's been a brilliant approach for him. So yeah, but I do agree. The other good side of it is that there are a ton of fights that the UFC can make with Colby Covington here. You know, especially maybe those guys that are out of ATT. You can keep kind of pushing that rivalry. Right. You know, you have the good guy, the perfect boy, Wonder Boy out there that you can make a fight with. You know, Gilbert Burns. I mean, whatever it is, Colby's going to find a way to create, you know, some kind of rivalry with all those guys. So I'm interested to see how he approaches his next few fights.
I mean, certainly he's not fighting Sean Brady, nor Michael Chiesa, nor Jeff Neal, and I say that with all due respect, right? Yeah. But if Leon Edwards is going to get the next championship opportunity, a month from now, Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev are going to settle their business, and then I think the winner or the loser, I think, could make sense for Covington. Certainly the winner, but again, he ain't fucking calling out Khamzat Chimaev, right?
No.
Right.
No. I mean, again, based on what I've seen and you know, his pedigree and all that stuff, and there's been some great video on Khamzat recently with Darren Till, and they've been, you know, promoting him a lot more, which I think is really smart. This is a guy that can wrestle, man. You know, I don't think there's a better wrestler in that division. So why would you ever face a guy who does things better than you do? Like, I think he's got better submissions than Colby, and I think he's got better wrestling than Colby. He's fucking bigger than Colby, that's for sure. So, I mean, that's a nightmare matchup for anybody in that division. And again, he's not even, you know, ranked in the top 5. So they're like,
right, he's number 11, but that could
Yeah.
change. Gilbert Burns figures to have a whole lot to say about that. But yeah, I mean, Jorge Masvidal hasn't been submitted since that Toby Imada reverse inverted triangle choke, or whatever you guys like to call it. I was there, but I don't know the technical term for it. But you don't think Khamzat Chimaev physically, if the fight plays out last night over 25 minutes, finds a way to crank that neck fully or to get underneath the fucking chin? With all due respect, you know, he tosses Alir Latifi on his head in training, you know, and Colby Covington could make 60. So,
yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll get to Jalen Turner, speaking of size, in a little bit here. But in terms of Masvidal's future, you highlighted sort of some of the things that didn't go particularly well. Can you imagine, though, if he was able to follow up that shot in the 4th round and how much the narrative just spins? But a lot of noise about a fight between him and Conor McGregor. Dana has been dismissive of that fight previously because of what he perceives to be a size discrepancy. Do you believe that Masvidal and McGregor is the fight to make, maybe November, New York City?
Gosh, that would be an awesome fight. I think that'd be really interesting. Again, these are two of the biggest names in the sport right now. I mean, who's bringing in more pay-per-view buys than these guys right now? Not many. So I think that would be a fascinating fight. Perhaps they make it at a catch weight. If there's 2 fighters that would be deserving of a catch weight, it would be those guys. Why not?
And we wish a good early Sunday afternoon to Raymond Longo, who's wearing a UFC Venom fight kit. How you doing, my man?
Yeah, man. How's it going? Man, you're working your ass off last night.
Oh, and I hit the red eye, and here we are. You know.
Wow.
Yeah,
You could
we're
still
back
get.
in Florida.
That's crazy, man. Great night last night. No.
Yeah, it was a great night, and it's good to see you. And thanks for squeezing us in. So we were just talking about Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. I guess we'll circle back a little bit. I just want to get your thoughts overall on the week that was. I mean, I was so gassed by the time I got to the goddamn arena. But your thoughts on fight week and ultimately the main event between these two rivals.
Well, I'll tell you, I was in agreement with whoever said the bet should be, will they shake hands after the fight? That's what I was more curious. I was more curious in that.
Rogan and Mike. Yeah, Rogan
we
and
knew because we knew in the fighter meetings they were both so adamant that that would never fucking happen that I was sort of bemoaning the fact that Rogan only put $20 up, which to him is probably like a penny, a little copper penny.
Oh, that's below a copper penny. Yeah, no, man, that's got to be a bitter pill to swallow if that shit is that serious, you know. So I guess it is, and just Covington, man, just even the willingness to trade hands with him, and he's very talented. I think that really put an exclamation point on, you know, I think everybody said what was the right thing to say. If it wasn't for Usman, he'd be the champion. Right. He's definitely the number one guy. Yeah, just thought it was, I think we all picked Covington to win. So, I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if Masvidal did win, but he did do exactly what I think we thought the path to victory would be. He was just going to use his wrestling to control where the fight was, but his willingness to exchange hands and outstrike Masvidal was a little surprising. And he ate that punch, man, that I'm saying 9 out of 10 guys are on the floor, Kenny. I mean, he twisted his head, whiplash, everything you want from a punch.
100%.
And that guy basically just his knee barely hit the ground and he was up and refocused, and he's dangerous, man. He's hard to put away, and he's relentless, and he's got a great gas tank, and you know, he looked great.
No, I mean, you set it up beautifully. And, you know, I oftentimes talk about my time covering Floyd Mayweather, that even when he would get off to slow starts against Sugar Shane Mosley, even Conor McGregor, like by and large, never really had a bad training camp and never was flat on fight night. Like you look at what Usman and Covington have done, the consistency is just remarkable. We were talking, though, Ray, about the welterweight top 15 and the fact that at least as it stands right now, Covington has fought like none of these guys, you know, like he's fought Usman, he's fought Masvidal, but he's fought none of the welterweight top 10. So I'm putting him on a pedestal. I think he's I looked at the pound for pound list today. I think Covington's one of the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the sport, but there's a million tough matchups for him at 70 that he hasn't faced.
Right. But he beat Dos Anjos, right?
Right. So but we're talking about the current guys. So he has wins
all right.
over Dos Anjos, Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley, 3 former UFC champions, right?
Yeah, that counts for something.
No doubt. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I was saying on the post-fight show, Kenny, like, can you imagine if Covington's a Hall of Famer, like, and he walks to the podium, like, what's that going to be like? You know,
I can tell you what it's going to be like. He's going to have his Magna hat on. Is that what they call it? The Trump hat?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. He's going to get up there and he's going to do his spiel like he always does. That's it.
Do you find it interesting, Ray? And by the way, I got to see Marab in Vegas.
Nice.
He wasn't as excited to see me as I was to see him, but that's okay.
I actually find that hard to believe.
That's okay. He was busy. I think there was maybe a woman alongside. I don't know. Anyway,
if that was the case, you don't stand a chance. That's the only thing that could ruin him right now. That's it. Period. If you're telling me that, then he wasn't excited to see you.
Every fighter's kryptonite.
Yeah, right. You know, I mean, well, let's just say he might have been happy to see you, but his cock wasn't. That wasn't happening.
Yep, that's right. He's like, "Hi, John."
Great translation.
Yeah.
But don't you find it interesting, Ray? Do you not find it interesting that Colby Covington hasn't faced Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Magny, Sean Brady, Khamzat Chimaev, Jeff Neal? Like, I just don't think any of those names are a walkover for Covington. I think he'd be favored against everyone except Chimaev, but I don't think any of those fights are walkovers.
No. Well, listen, I don't think any fight in the UFC at a certain level is a walkover. Right. I mean, that's the beauty of the sport. But
maybe I'm making too much of this. Right?
Maybe a little bit too much, because I mean, he's faced
narrative that he is like he's the second best welterweight in the world, and I think we're all in agreement. But it's like this came across my wake this morning. I'm like, Jesus, man! Like his wins list is not bad. It's great. He has 3 UFC champions on it, but he hasn't fought anybody who's relevant at 170 pounds right now.
Right. So, and you're kind of making the case that even the guys at 170 at the time he fought him, maybe they were on the downslide. So we're taking
and even
a
if I
something.
wasn't making that case,
you're still making just a case of the other
I love
guys.
the Poirier fight. Like, I think it's intriguing, but Dustin, tweets maybe fight a welterweight contender, which sort of led me to this conversation that he hasn't fought a lot of these guys. Now, I understand, Ken Flo talking about just plucking off one ATT fighter at a time. But I don't think Poirier has the appetite for the fight and all the preamble that goes with fighting Colby. I just don't think Poirier, given what his bank statement, I don't think he wants to deal with it. Yeah, even if he thinks he might be able to beat him.
I don't think it's a good fight for him anyway. After watching the other fight, you know what I mean? That's the other thing. He's gonna. I would think it's the same thing, maybe worse. But
all right. I know your time is short today. Well, you got a private coming up 1 p.m. Eastern or what?
I got
what?
I screwed everything up today. I just start booking people. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore.
That's all right.
But wait, I'll tell you, the one big surprise I'm sure it wasn't a surprise to you guys. The way that first off, hats off to Bryce Mitchell. The way he just manhandled Barboza. I really didn't see that coming. I thought it would be harder, even if we knew what he was going to try to do, but man, he impressed the shit out of me. And again, Barboza is getting older, I guess, but damn, that was a great performance by Bryce. And I guess, man, he's got the power of belief behind him. He's got technique. He's, he doesn't look the part necessarily, but man, Kenny, right? That was crazy.
Very impressive.
I mean, fact that, Barboza not even really making an attempt to get off his back at this stage of the game, I think is
that's what was it for me too. Barboza definitely made a lot of mistakes, and he's been at this a long time, and
without a doubt,
it was the same thing. You know what the blueprint is out on you,
without a doubt.
You know what they're going to try to do. You know what your strengths are, and I thought he was spazzing out a little bit too much on the feet. He was a little nervous. Wasn't patient, wasn't methodical out there, and it just seemed hectic and chaotic for him. And then on the ground, there was no real attempt. I mean, it's like you had all these years, all these fights to go back and look at that you made mistakes on, and you're the same guy. That was unfortunate. I felt bad for him there. Yeah.
So I'm with you 100% on that. And again, I guess he just doesn't deal with forward pressure, man. That's his Achilles heel. He's just not comfortable fighting backwards or fighting off his back leg or whatever it is. I hats off to Bryce though, man, because I really thought that was going to be way tougher. And he made that shit look easy.
I'd imagine, Bryce trained with Aljo in Vegas a little bit during this training camp. Did you know that?
Well, I know you said it, so I knew it like that.
I didn't know if you muted the broadcast like Cruiser,
Like who does?
Dominic.
That's not a surprise at all. But he's been here. He was here probably about 6 years ago. Yeah. And definitely was scrappy and tough, but he's really made a change, man. He looked great, but really great.
Kenny, Bryce Mitchell is 6-0 in the UFC, 5 decision wins. In terms of his ceiling, I mean, when you start to invoke the likes of Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, it feels like a lot right now, but he's only 27. But when you look at the rankings, it's guys like Iga Chikadze and Calvin Kattar potentially that might be in his wake. What are your thoughts on Mitchell in terms of where he's at now relative to the future?
I was really impressed with his performance. He was facing a guy in Barboza who obviously very physically gifted. He's lightning fast, and he found a way to be very effective. He's tough as nails. I see an improvement in how he sets up his takedowns. He does not necessarily come from this crazy wrestling background, yet his timing on his takedowns I thought were phenomenal.
Absolutely,
his head
beautiful
positioning, his control, he made it a lot easier, and he just beat up Barboza. I mean, he just clowned him, and every moment that he had, he was taking advantage of all of the mistakes for the most part. The only thing, if I'm going to criticize something, is I don't know. Maybe I would like to see more setups to submissions, but his position was doing all the work for him anyway. It was his positioning that was allowing him to pound him out. So yeah. I was really impressed. This is a kid who can go very far in that division. again, in a division that has been one of the toughest in the UFC over the last few years. So just a wealth of talent there. So Bryce is well on his way, man. He was very focused, continues to improve. And yeah, nice.
I'll tell you, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, timing and awareness too, both of those on the takedowns, because man, he just made that look easy. Because, you know, Kenny, it's like if I throw a jab at you, like some people are going to pick that up the millisecond it starts. Some people are going to pick it up halfway in. Some people never pick it up and they get just this guy when he went just hands only and he threw that cross and he just made that look easy, man. He slipped that cross. So timing, awareness was impeccable last night for that kid. I don't think he could do anything wrong unless it was just one of those nights where, you know, you're just in the zone and everything you do goes right. But man,
he's a gamer consistently.
Yeah, he's a gamer.
He always shows up.
He's not
always
going away.
Shows up.
Yeah, at this point, I think it's safe to say he's never going away easy. At this point, you're gonna have to really put it on him. And I think that now that was for me that was a great fight to see for him. So I'm sold on Bryce Mitchell for sure.
I really would like to see you align with him, Kenny, because I think there are spiritual components to him. I just think there's some mental alignment between you two. And obviously, you know how I feel about your ability to not just have a 3 or 4 stripes on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but to put people the fuck away, you know, like 6-0 in the UFC 5 decision wins, you know, got to start putting some people away, Thug Nasty, but I love you. I don't think Cater and Emmett are going to want to fight down in the ranking necessarily, but I did right here. I do think a main event makes sense for Bryce Mitchell next, potentially. We'll see if, I think his style for 5 rounds would be good as well. All right, Ray, before we let you go, we got about 4 minutes. Co-main event, Rafael Dos Anjos over Renato Moicano, and I'd love to, you know, celebrate Dos Anjos, and I think he's a Hall of Famer, and we will. But obviously, much is made of Moicano in defeat, all the heart that he exuded, and the fact that he was able to survive those 25 minutes.
Yeah, what's the question?
What are your thoughts? It's amazing to me how, you know, my analyst, right, Bisping, always wants to know how I'm going to tee him up. And oftentimes I tee you guys up open-endedly. So you can take it wherever the fuck you want. But if you'd like a hard-hitting journalistic question, then I can do that too.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about should it have been stopped? Did you want that aspect of it, or
I didn't necessarily want to lead. What's the term? Like lead a fucking horse to water or whatever it is, you know. But no, I guess I'm just curious overall your thoughts on how Mark Goddard handled that situation and how the corner and everybody else handled the situation.
Man, that shit gets really tricky to me. Look, I'm fine if we want to make that you know, like a new thing where the ref can come in and talk to the doc, say, look, I don't think he's going to win. Why let him take the damage? I think that'll open up a can of worms that might not be good. But I'll tell you one thing I definitely didn't agree with. I think you guys were saying that he came out and he didn't want to hurt Moicano. If anything, he didn't want to get hurt himself. That's different. You know what I mean? But to think that he didn't want to hurt Moicano, he took some big shots, and he's a complete idiot because he took shots that he shouldn't have. You know, he could have gotten out of there. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So it's not. He might have said, "Listen, I made it this far. I definitely won. Let me just go out there, see if I could coast, and you know, my hands feel good. Everything feels good. I get out of here 5 rounds unscathed. That's different, you know." And he still took some big shots for that effort, you know. So and that was the tricky thing. Goddard did say, you know, I'll give you 30 seconds to turn it around. He was game in the 5th round. So, you know, I think the visual maybe was worse than what was happening, but you got to give it up to the guy, man. A heart of a lion. And he just, you know, he went for it even in the 5th round. He didn't want to acquiesce to anything. So sometimes you do got to save people from themselves. I get it, but I'm not sure if that was the case. But look, anytime it's fighter safety involved, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? So I'm not arguing for it, but I think we're used to seeing one thing and then we're trying to change it now. I'm good with that too. As long as the fight is safe, safety is the first thing that's the concern. I'm all for it. And again, it wasn't about, like, the chances of him, you always have a chance, though. We could probably go back to 20 fights and do the same thing where the guy won. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it gets tricky. But I didn't think he had a chance of winning that fight. And, why see the guy go through that damage? Would have been more psychological damage if they stopped it for that reason, because they thought the guy was he sucks and he's not going to win. And at this point, he's, I don't know, that could have an effect on him too. The guy wants to go out on his shield. I'm sure he's going to be all right at the end of the day, but I'm for fighter safety. I don't know. It was a little weird, but the fact that he came back like that in the 5th round, there's 2 fights that come to mind. One was a kid from Colorado that just got the shit beat out of him. That was his only fight. I can't think of the guy's name. And we just saw a fight with Sean O'Malley and the other kid from Boston.
Chris
that
Mutino.
Was, all right, the guy came in, he saved the day. Let's get out of here, let him fight another day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These guys are coming in on short notice too. So
yeah,
I don't think there's any honor lost in stopping the fight early.
I'm going to get Kenny's thoughts on the other side because I know you got to go, but we appreciate.
No, we're good. We're good.
Yo, you're okay. So Kenny, a ton to unpack there.
That's a tough one.
It is. I was unsure about it as well as I was watching. I was like, this is not changing here, and again, after you've been concussed, when you've been hit with a big shot like that, every shot matters after that, right? So anyways, but I think, and I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, I do think Mark Goddard made the right call here, actually, because of the way it went down in that 5th round. Moicano continued to fight hard. He gave him that 30 seconds, like, hey, if RDA goes in there and starts to smash him up, I'm going to stop this fight immediately. There was one point early in the 5th round where he started getting a little close, but he backed up. Moicano started responding, started landing a lot of shots. And if I'm RDA, I'm surprised that he didn't go forward to just try to put the pressure on him, start pounding him out and just this fight over. Yeah. But again, a huge credit to Moicano. I think he learned a lot about himself. Now, this is the trade-off. You went further. You proved to yourself what kind of balls you have, all that stuff. How is that going to affect him long-term? I don't know. Did that take a few years off of his fighting career? Who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows. But he did take some damage there. So a huge moral victory. But from the way things were heading, it didn't seem like anything was changing. But he fought hard in that 5th round, man. He was trying to finish RDA.
Oh, without
and it wasn't the other way around.
Oh, without a doubt. And Kenny brings up a great point, too, is that once you're concussed, that second impact syndrome, I think they call it, is way worse. So, look, man, as I'm getting old, I'm all for everybody being as healthy as they could be to live a long life. So, hats off to Goddard for maybe even making the first attempt to say we got to start getting proactive on saving these guys. So then it's a good deal, because you got to remember, I go way back in the sport where things definitely changed, and back in the day, man, you get knocked out in a boxing ring, right? Just in a day of training, you were back in there the next day. That was their way of testing you. So
true.
We have to. I think people don't get, even with worldly stuff, like, when you're from a certain era, man, you got to give guys a chance to adjust to what's going on, the new stuff that's coming on, because it's really not fair that you grow up one way and then all of a sudden on a dime, you're just changing everything, but education, awareness is always important. And, I'm sure that's a fight. Like, if I look at and we keep talking about, I'll be more on board with Goddard than the other way around. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because, like, again, my initial thing is you got to let a guy go out on his shield, and I don't know if that was as bad as that like when that kid was getting beat up by O'Malley. I'm not sure about that. And there was another fight where the guy he came in last, just outclassed and got tortured. I got to go back and find out what fight that was. But those are fights where you could look at from the first round and go, nothing's changing. You know what I mean? So you got to really be careful. Moicano has gotten guys out of there. So that's the other problem. His corner knows that he could change the fight around with a couple of punches. So they want to offer him that opportunity. But, in doing so, do you kill the guy? I mean, this game is brutal. I mean, we're talking about things that there's nothing in this sport that's good for anything longevity-wise. Nothing.
Right.
The making
hitting a soccer ball isn't supposed to be good.
100%. Frying your internal organs to make 155, that's not helping you in the future. You keep doing that. Somebody told me that's a clear way to diabetes in the future. You know what I mean? There's nothing good. So
Well, and I am very close with Pahumpa, as you guys know, Moicano's head coach, and he's as nice a guy as there is in the sport. I don't think he thought for a second about, after everything that Renato went through and how good his cut and recovery was, and he didn't go home and eat cheeseburgers and drink alcohol yet. Like, he was ready to go, even though they didn't love the 5-round component, right? Like, that was the only thing Pahumpa was concerned with, was that it was 25 minutes, and it probably should not have been.
And that's a great point too. If that's a 3-round fight, it's a good fight. You know, he got beat up a little bit. He's out of there. You know, that why would you do that to the guy? That's another great point. The guy's coming in at last minute, just saved the fight, 3 rounds. Yeah. You're asking a lot out of a guy that just fought, man. So
all right, you told me you had to leave. Are you still good? Tell me when you have to go.
I got 5 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes. All right. So, yes, and just putting a bow on that, I thought it was a fucking masterclass from Mark Goddard, right? Like, the way he handled the ringside physician, right? Because the thing is, Moicano passed both of the vision tests, and even the second one, like, he could see out of the eye. So the doctor wasn't going to intervene. The corner wasn't going to intervene. And I just thought Goddard handled the situation beautifully. And thankfully, Colby Covington doesn't want Goddard reffing his fights. So we got Mark Goddard in the co-main event, and it all worked out.
Nice.
Real quickly on Dos Anjos, Ray. You know, it's tricky with the Hall of Fame, right? There's guys like Jim Miller that are going to get in based on longevity, but how is Rafael Dos Anjos not a Hall of Famer, right? 20 UFC wins, top 10 in UFC wins all time. He's won the belt that he defended. I believe he did. Like, I don't know. I mean, it should be an afterthought that he's in the Hall of Fame, but if you think about one guy going into the modern era for the next 10 years with Daniel Cormier and all the high-profile guys, you know, Khabib barely retired. He's already in. Like, it's hard to think of a time in the next 5, 7, 8 years where they build a Hall of Fame class around Rafael Dos Anjos. But for me, Ray, Kenny, he's a Hall of Fame.
No, he's definitely a Hall of Famer. But, like, again, when you start mentioning DC, he's not as much of a Hall of Famer as DC is. You know what I mean? So they'd have to do like baseball, where you get maybe a couple of guys every year and throw them in there. I think that's what he needs. Because if you go individually, I don't think he's going to hold up as much as some of the other guys.
Right. And you know, a prime Ken Flo beats a prime RDA. So how do you handle that, right, as a voter?
Hey,
they need to consider that.
John, all that matters is that Ken Flo's in our Hall of Fame. That's all.
Exactly.
Right? He doesn't. I mean, for the people that really count, do you think he cares?
Yeah, like the Ken Flo that lost, they should just take that out and then just count all my wins. And then the prime Ken Flo makes it into the Hall of Fame.
That's funny.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, what Kenny says about the start of the 5th round, right? Because Dos Anjos is watching this all play out, and he knows Moicano has not been in camp. Yes, he had a win a few weeks ago, but he was chilling, right? He didn't blow up, but he wasn't training. And I talk about Kenny's killer instinct a lot on this show, and he hates when I make the focus him, right? But you sort of can read into his comments like, Kenny is literally trying to kill that dude at the beginning of round 5, because a lot is made of this like RDA fighting philanthropy or fighting philanthropy.
Well, you guys made that though, you know.
Well, I don't think I was the first to suggest it, but it did seem like he was holding back a little bit. I'd have to listen to the audio. I hope I'm aligned with you that he wasn't exercising philanthropy as much as he was mitigating risk.
I think that to me that makes more sense. I don't know. You never. You know what I mean? And you got to remember, going into that 5th round, he, in his head, easily could have thought, I'm going to go through this round easy. He didn't anticipate, God had kind of lit a fire under his ass. You got 30 seconds to turn this around. Right. So he's literally instigating the guy to pick it up. And I think when you're Dos Anjos and you're looking across, your corner's probably telling you, they're going to stop the fight. They're not going to let the guy fight. Then all of a sudden, it could be like an adrenaline dump a little bit. Okay, I think the fight's over. Then I'm going back in there. Let me get out of here. Yeah. And the next thing you know, the guy's coming forward. He's hitting you with 3-punch combinations. And you're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I got to start fighting again. And, I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
All right, so who do you have coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern?
Oh, I have Doug Green.
All right.
Mo Green from Vegas. It's his nephew.
You're talking the crochet boss, Maurice?
Yeah, Mo Green.
Really?
The guy
Mo Green from The Godfather.
Yeah, the guy that got his eyeballs shot out.
Sorry.
My favorite movie. I wasn't going to.
It's a classic.
So there was a time last night, Marina Rodriguez landed a punch to the chest of Yan Xiaonan, and I had the moment to say, how about that? It looked like Rodriguez was trying to punch a hole in her chest, but I lost the real estate, and then 40 seconds expired, and I couldn't circle back, but you were in my thoughts.
That would have been so big for the show. But
hopefully you didn't get too sensitive with my Instagram video. I do think you have been a little bit ornery with me of late.
We changed it today, though. I came in with a new
attitude. You did.
No, right. I love you guys. I mean,
well,
Ray,
we love
you need to trademark that, by the way.
Yeah, people are. Yeah, I actually
like it's time.
I think Cody.
I
think Cody already did it for himself, but I'm not sure.
We own it now.
Yeah,
wait, first off, two things that I'm out of here. The girl fight was crazy. That Rodriguez fight was very close.
Yeah.
What a great matchup that was. And the girl from the Ukraine, your heart had to go out to her, no?
Yeah. Marina Moraes.
Phenomenal, just the sentiment and just you felt the pain. I mean, it's hard not to start crying when you hear these people just begging for their lives and for help and stuff. So shout out to her, man. Great job under shitty circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to show you how tough those Ukrainians are.
And then having an opponent, of course, who's motherfucking you every step of the way.
Yeah.
With the backdrop of everything going on in your country. Yeah.
Horrible.
Gotta feel good for Marina Moraes. All right,
man.
Get on out of here.
Listen,
Appreciate
man,
you.
Again, I want to tell everybody I love you guys. There's no animosity,
That's
nothing.
good.
Oh,
That's
wait.
good.
Before I forget, too, the Terror was very upset. Sarah was upset. I used the word fabricated. I was trying to say that he didn't live with yous, you know what I mean? And then you're friends, and then you go like that.
Right.
I used the wrong word, but he hates him. He wanted everybody to know.
Yeah,
there's no fabrication in that.
Right.
You know,
no. That's a good example. And you know, Tito.
I just thought it was different when you're living with a guy and you're friends, and then something happens. That shit cuts deep, man. Which you were seeing did cut deep.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm out of here on that.
All right, buddy.
Matt's
take it easy, guys.
Have a good one, Ray.
Bye.
The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And you can still see that Covington and Masvidal, like they do like each other a little bit. It's funny, like they because you can see why they bonded, right? Because they're both sort of strong-willed, and I don't know. It wasn't easy. It was not hard to see why they became two peas in a pod. But all right. Longo taking some blame. The Minutemen in the comments, maybe that'll fucking touch y'all up as he's banging all over the goddamn radio clock today. We treat this like a radio show. You got to show up when you're scheduled. All right, we have about 9 more minutes before we get to Brian Petrie, so I'm going to rifle through as much of this UFC 272 stuff as I can get to that we have not touched on already. Kevin Holland over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. You know, I think anytime you can win a fight in which you lose a round and it looks like maybe things are slipping away, there's even more value in that win. So I thought this was a great welterweight debut for Kevin Holland. I believed he was bonused as well. He was. What are your thoughts on the Trailblazer at 170 pounds?
Yeah, it was good. I think it was a good fight also in the fact that he had to deal with some adversity, had to battle back, made the proper adjustments after that first round, and did a great job. My feed was all messed up. The ESPN was having problems with their app, so I actually missed the dang finish while it was happening in round 2. But anyways, I was happy to see him get that win. I think he's going to do some serious damage in the welterweight division. He looked confident. He looked good. So that was good. That was good to see for sure. Kevin Holland.
Some of our listeners were chiming in about his durability and maybe some concerns because he was touched in this fight. So I do think that bears watching, you know, because he spars a ton and he has been hittable at times, but I do think he's an intriguing injection of talent into what I believe is the best weight class for him. So we'll see how.
The worst thing he could have done was underestimate someone like Cowboy because he's always dangerous. That dude is game. Yeah.
And especially with his back up against the wall, he's been very sharp when he's coming off a losing streak. You know, this was his second 3-fight losing streak for Cowboy Oliveira in the UFC, responded with 2 wins after the first time. And now it's 4 in a row, I think, for Cowboy. But I don't know. I thought Oliveira, he beat a good Oliveira. He beat a motivated, performing Alex Oliveira. Did you see the main card opener, Sergey Spivak over Greg Hardy?
I did. I saw the very end of it. Again, had issues with my feed, but yeah.
So sometimes there are more storylines on the loser than the winner, whether it's RDA against Moicano or other fights we could point to. But I want to talk about Sergey Spivak at least for 20 seconds, right? Like he worked so hard for 6 months to put himself in position against really any heavyweight, right? There were a lot of different matchups, but he's bounced around a lot looking for the best training. And that speaks volumes to me. You know, he went to AKA, you know, everybody thinks with Bryce Mitchell, it's all country training in Arkansas, but, you know, went to Chris Brennan's gym in Texas, went to Vegas with Aljo, just doesn't need everybody knowing about it. But Spivak now aligning with Eric Nixick at Extreme Couture, just manhandling a 300-pound man. Like Greg Hardy was 305 pounds probably on fight night. But Hardy, man, like, just given the athletic gifts, given some of the early knockouts we saw against Austin Lane on Dana White's Contender Series, and just given the fact that he perpetually refers to himself as one of the most savage athletes on the planet, he has underachieved in the UFC. And maybe that's not fair of me to say because he only turned pro in 2018 and he had nothing really resembling a martial arts background. But to me, it's like you got to get ahead of the weight cut. You can't show up 291, 295 pounds and expect to have anything left in minute 12. And in this fight, obviously, he was disposed of in 2 minutes. I don't know if the UFC is going to get rid of him. This was the last fight on his contract, but I don't know. He talks a good game in terms of loving the sport and everything that goes into it. I don't necessarily, take him at his every word given recent performances.
You can love the sport. Do you love working on all the things that you're terrible at? That's the question, right? And I think, mentorship goes a long way. I think your ability to be curious and want to work on all of your weaknesses goes a long way. And I also think, your mental toughness is another thing. It's easy if you're beating the hell out of everybody. It's easy if you're knocking everybody out, if you're the one who's the hammer all the time. It's quite another thing if you have the ability to battle back when you're getting hammered, when you are the nail. And I haven't quite seen that from Hardy. Like when he starts taking a beating, he doesn't respond that well. He'll try a little bit, but he usually kind of submits mentally. So I haven't seen the development as much as I would have liked. And again, it speaks to the difficulty of mixed martial arts. It's much more than just the physical. There's the mental, there's the technical, there's the strategic and tactical aspect. So much to it.
Yeah. I mean, there have been some fighters, Frank Mir, whom I love, comes to mind, even Chael Sonnen. When the tide starts to turn, it seems like maybe they're looking for a way out and they recognize they don't believe they're going to win the fight. And there's a little bit of give up there, I say, with all due respect. And Colby Covington is on the total other end of that spectrum. Like as soon as he gets cracked, it's like the urgency. It's just incredible. Jalen Turner, 6'3", 155 pounds. Like I guess that means I need to weigh like 141, right? Instead of 151 or whatever I weigh. I mean, man, it's like, I just think he's been built well by the UFC, and he's just so composed and controlling his breathing in there, and obviously has a lot of physical gifts, maybe more athletic gifts than some people initially thought. Any thoughts on Jalen Turner and his future at 55?
All you got to do is get on the inside. Just get on the inside of him. That's all you got to do. 6'3". Like, are you kidding me? Good luck. Good luck. He did a great job of staying really composed. There was never a point where he was freaking out, even when he was getting hit with shots. He would make the right adjustments. A little concerned sometimes with his head position. He was, a little bit too tall at times where he can get hit. But again, he's a problem, man. I think he's got a ton of potential. And just his size is a problem. But now when you add the fact that he's composed, he's technical, he loves learning the game, he's intelligent in his approach. Good luck beating that guy.
Yeah, I think Turner's going to get a top 15 guy, but you got to get him to sign on the dotted line to fight a 6'3" lightweight that has a lot of tools in striking and grappling. We also congratulate Marina Moroz, of course, over Maria Agapova. Umar Nurmagomedov looks like a real threat at bantamweight, even though he competed at featherweight. You gotta be happy for Tim Elliott. James Krause to beat Tagir Ulanbekov, right? With Khabib in the other corner. Yeah. Big ups to James Krause and Glory MMA and Fitness. And Tim Elliott cashes as a plus 190 dog. Danny Rubes got Ludovic Klein stepping up on short notice out of Slovakia to beat Devontae Smith. And Dustin Jacoby with a big win to open the show. I did think Kennedy and Nzechukwu beat Nikolai Negumedianu, but I digress. All right, that puts a wrap on UFC 272. More coming up later this week with my twin bro and Bilal Muhammad on Remember the Show. But now it is time for the pronunciation of the week. We asked Cody Merrow to get a haircut. He has obliged. What's up, my man?
Well, everyone was trying to ask for odds on this. DK Sportsbook, better haircut, me or Ray?
Yeah.
I'm the dog. I'm like a plus 400. I'm coming in hot.
Although
it looks good, dude. Looks
in the
good.
teeth department, you're minus 1,000 though, I think.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. So when TJ DeSantis was the producer of this show, I'm going to hell, right? I mentioned
I definitely have a better haircut than TJ. No offense.
I mentioned Mob Deep Hell on Earth on the broadcast, and nobody seemed to get it. Unbelievable. All right. So, but one thing about TJ that we could always guarantee, and I say this to you, Cody, with all due respect, your eyes look very white today, by the way.
That's good.
Yeah. But TJ would never listen to the file first. And I sort of feel like if you get this one right, then it speaks to maybe you cheating. But I digress.
Okay.
This fighter
making me second guess the way I'm going to say it.
This fighter will be fighting on the main card against Karl Roberson coming up this weekend. Remember him leg kicking the hell out of Eric Anders back in the day. Who am I talking about?
I believe you're talking about Khalil Rountree.
All right, let's hear him say it.
Khalil Rountree. Khalil Rountree.
Khalil, not Khalil.
Yeah. See, because I knew that when he said, "Oh, you'd be cheating," I was like, "Yeah, it's probably Khalil," because everyone says it Khalil.
Right.
I was like, "Yeah, it's probably Khalil." You know, like I don't know, like Lil Khalil. Yeah. He's Khalil. He's Khalil Rountree Jr., right? So his son is Lil Khalil, the third.
Lil Wayne, like Lil Wayne. It's not Lil Wayne.
LK.
Yeah.
Got it.
But, we could have gone in a lot of different directions today with Magomed Ankalaev. I believe the Brazilian Pereira actually pronounces his first name Alex Pereira. We'll see what they go with this weekend. But we went with Khalil Rountree Jr. because it ain't Khalil, right? Everybody's dropping a Khalil. They're like, oh, I don't need to listen to this audio file. It's fucking Khalil. It's
right.
Khalil. So,
dope.
Well, I get at least I'm not cheating. So there you go.
Hey. Thank you, brother. Nice sweatshirt, too. Hopefully it's the right size. One more sleep. Millions.co. All right. We have got 6 selections to make for UFC Fight Night. Is it Ankalaev versus Santos? Let's see. Or is it Santos versus Ankalaev? UFC Fight Night. Santos versus Ankalaev. Let's get to the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights. I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
All right, breakneck pace for the UFC. We have no choice but to spin it forward as we welcome on the host of the MMA Takes podcast, the great Brian Petrie. I kind of missed you last week, bro.
Yeah, I missed being on, guys. I missed
growing
you
your hair back out. What are we doing? I thought we were going to shave our head.
Yeah. So shaved the head. Wife wanted it back out, so it's going back out. I took a shower after the fights last night and fell asleep. And before I hopped in here, she's like, "You're wearing a hat, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll throw it on."
All right. Well, one day I'll have to talk to the lovely lady about getting you back in the short hair club. We update the standings. Petrie, you've been on fire. I know you didn't get to celebrate another winning week last week, but James Krause made picks for Team Anik last week, and he did well. Won the week. He did pick Greg Hardy, but overall standings, minus 0.8 units for Team Anik, minus 4.4 units for Team Florian. Kenflo, you were even on the week. 3-3 with your selections. Took a flyer on Jorge Masvidal, and our Fiziev Dos Santos bets obviously go off the board. All right, 6 bets to make today. We will start with a fight that we just could not leave on the cutting room floor, Bry. Alex Pereira, minus 170 against Bruno Silva, plus 150. Many of you know Pereira. 2 head-to-head kickboxing wins against Israel Adesanya. Won a bonus for stopping Andreas Michailidis in his UFC debut. Trains with Glover Teixeira. And Kenny, Glover just raves, by the way, about his strength and appetite for grappling knowledge. So I'll just throw that in your wheelhouse as well. Bruno Silva on the other side, 3-0 in the UFC, back-to-back bonuses. I think this fight is unbelievable. I'm very glad I don't have to pick a winner. BP, who do you have?
I mean, listen, MMA gods, just let this happen, please. I cannot wait for this fight. I love this fight. Listen, there's a lot of unanswered questions because Pereira coming over from kickboxing, Bruno Silva has 5 times the amount of MMA fights. So the idea that people are thinking is, oh, listen, Silva can come in and take him down and submit him. He has no submission wins on his record. He's a banger that likes to stand up and that's what he wants to do. That's what he do with Jordan Wright. Got in a little bit of trouble, but he's got bricks for hands. I mean, this guy cracks. But Pereira, listen, I've been watching MMA since I was 15, so 20 years, hardcore fan. I don't think I've seen a better left hook than Pereira. That left hook is unbelievable. Where it's kickboxing, MMA, whether he's countering, where he's leading, that thing is nuts. And I don't want to get too excited. I get a little googly eyes for the new guys because Pereira's got that juice.
He does.
They brought him in to fight Izzy. I mean, let's just be honest. If he gets those wins up, he's fighting Izzy. His debut against Andre Michailidis, he looked great, stopped the takedowns and looked devastating, went to the second round. I love that he left Brazil and went to Connecticut. The change with Glover. Glover's taking him down and just laying on top of him. That's like a Ford Escort on top of you because Glover's just heavy as shit. I love Pereira here. At first glance, I'm like, man, this seems a little off because Bruno Silva has a lot of MMA experience. Pereira doesn't have that. He's the favorite, but he's got that juice.
Yeah.
And I just don't see I don't see Silva being able to take him down. I'm going to go Pereira here by knockout, and I'm very confident in this.
All right, Brian Petrie is going to look for the knockout prop on Alex Pereira. On the other side, Kenflo Bruno Silva started his MMA career 5-5. Now he is 22-6. Your thoughts on him here against Pereira?
Yeah, and pretty much all of his losses were early in his career. This guy, experienced a lot of volatility early in his career, then found a lot of consistency. And a lot of that consistency happened because of his hands, because of his striking. He does hit very hard. He comes from that shoot-to-box style of striking background. Also is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So he could fall back on that if he does get in trouble. But is that where he can really, be effective against Pereira? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But it is a nice thing to have in your back pocket. But I don't think he's going to change his colors. Certainly not early in a fight. And I think that's what's going to lead to his downfall. Pereira just is going to be too much. His size is just crazy. His strength. I believe in this kid, and I think he's going to do very well here. I expect him to win by KO.
All right, both guys like Alex Pereira. We move on to the lightweights. Drew Dober, -250. Terrence McKinney stepping in here for Ricky. The Gladiator Glenn is +200. I think Ricky Glenn tore his groin. T-Rex just had a win, as you guys know, February 26. Takes this fight on 8 days' notice. On the other side, Dober no longer ranked after back-to-back losses. Brian Petrie, who do you have?
I don't mind going first because Ken Flo is a legend, but right now I'm trying to get in that beautiful mind of Ken Flo and seeing what he's going to go with there, because this is obviously a late minute replacement here. Drew Dober's been through it all. He's fought everyone. He's very good. The one knock on Drew Dober is definitely not his looks, but it's his wrestling. He gets taken down. He gets submitted. That's kind of his thing. But usually he fights high-level guys. Terrence McKinney, I love this kid. I love his positive attitude. I love his abilities. I mean, he cracks, but he's a wrestler. I hit him for 900 submission prop over Fairziem. I thought that was pretty easy. So there's a lot to be said here because McKinney hasn't been out of the first round. Like, what do we see? The only time we've seen him out of the first round is against Sean Woodson. That was at 145 on the contenders, and he faded. Drew Dober is a tough out. His takedown offense isn't great. And again, I'm trying to play the game here, trying to see what Kenny's going to do. I'm going to take McKinney because he's +200. I like the wrestling, and I don't want to be SpongeBob SquareBets here, so I'm going to go underdog here.
I like it. And this is how you spin a career forward, right? Not a whole lot of downside if McKinney loses, not unlike Moicano to Dos Anjos. You certainly don't want to absorb like a lot of concussive damage over 5 rounds necessarily like that. But you're right too. Drew Dober's fucking hot, huh?
He's a good-looking guy. He's a good-looking guy.
Ken Flo, Dober, McKinney, stylistically different matchup for Dober than Glenn would have been. Your thoughts on him here against the late notice replacement, Terrence McKinney?
This is an interesting fight. I think this is going to tell me a lot about McKinney. I hope anyway, see him in there in a banger, because Dober doesn't go away easily. He likes to bring the fight to you. He brings a lot of pressure, has a lot of good tools out there that could pose a lot of problems for a lot of guys. So yeah, curious to see what his approach here is in this fight. Is he going to try to stand up and strike with someone like McKinney? Is he going to try to take him to the mat? Because McKinney does come from a good wrestling background as well. So, but it is that wrestling background of McKinney, which gives me a lot of confidence in him. I like this kid. I think he has a lot of potential. He seems very focused. He puts it together well. And I think he's taking this fight for a reason, right? He's not going to just take this fight just to kind of make a paycheck. I think he believes he can absolutely win this fight against a true veteran in Drew Dober. So, yeah, Brian, you did get in my head, guy. I like Terrence McKinney here as well.
For the record, I'll have Ken Flo lead the co-main event today. Song Yadong and Marlon Moraes. But we now get to a pick'em fight, essentially at light heavyweight. The aforementioned Khalil, don't call him Khalil, Rountree Jr., -115. Karl Roberson, -105. So Roberson, Brian, has not fought since a loss to B.A. Brendan Allen last April. Rountree Jr. has fought a lot of strikers in his MMA career. Draws another one here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the battle of the inconsistents, and I don't want to disrespect either fighter, but I mean, I was in Atlanta.
You did.
I did. I was in Atlanta, UFC 236, and Rountree's kicks were like fucking baseball bats. I mean, I've never even heard it before. Like, I mean, it was crazy.
That was
insane. And then he goes out and he loses to Marcin Practico, who, gets rocked when he gets Vaseline put on him. I mean, no offense to Practico, but how do you lose that fight? I had a lot of money invested in Rountree. I'm a little bitter. I'm sorry. And then you got Karl Roberson, who has literally kind of is a striker, has looked good on the feet. But again, I think there's like a little mental hurdle for him. He had this huge beef with Vittori. They almost fought and the fights got canceled. He got sick and they goes in there and he lays an egg. But he does have some decent ground game. He has a really good rear naked choke. He gets on your back. It's almost death. So for that reason alone, I'm going to take Roberson. Yeah, I'm going to take Roberson by finish. I like him by sub. Rountree's cardio kind of bothers me as well, but his stand-up is fantastic. But yeah, give me Roberson here.
Ken Flo, Rountree Jr. or Roberson for you?
Listen, Brian nailed it. These are two of the most difficult guys to bet on in the UFC, particularly for me, for Rountree. I think Khalil is the better striker here, or at least he tends to show up a little bit more on the feet than, say, Roberson does. I'll go with Khalil. If he's going to get it done, he needs to get it done on the feet and most likely early. Let's go with Khalil.
By the way, we were taping anecdotes last week, and Cody was asking like a viewer question, and he called Edson Barboza like Edgison because he's dating a Brazilian girl. So get the fuck off my show.
Nice.
Get off my show. Just kidding. Cody, I got mad love for you.
He dates one Brazilian girl. He's Brazilian.
Edgison. I mean,
Porra.
Oh my gosh.
At feather, how about RDA moving back to Brazil? He should already be there, but he had to delay his whole goddamn move because he was supposed to fight Fiziev and, builds this beautiful garage gym in Costa Mesa, California. See ya.
Yeah, I mean, he could always stay in Costa Mesa and just pay 10 times the amount or more than he would pay in Brazil. He could live like a king there.
Right.
Go to Brazil.
And his wife wants to be there,
Right.
That's why Ken Flo's in Charlotte. His wife wants to be there. All right, at featherweight, this is a big fight here. 12th ranked Sodiq Yusuff, -235. Number 15, Alex Caceres, +190. Raise your hand if you're happy to see a number next to Alex Caceres' name. Fucking me. I love both of these guys, Brian. I hate to see either of them lose. I know that's a lazy take, but who do you like in this one? Big stakes here at 145 pounds.
Interesting fight. I like this. Excuse me. I like this matchmaking. I'm not Yanni the Greek, so excuse me if I get my stats here wrong. He's a stats guy. Alex Caceres has won 6 underdog fights, has won 6 underdog wins in the UFC. I mean, that's incredible. He's the capper's dream. He was the underdog against Chase Hooper, slight underdog. I got him at the underdog price. No offense to Chase Hooper. I hope he's eating M&Ms. I hope he's enjoying his life, but he shouldn't have been an underdog to Chase Hooper at that point in Chase Hooper's career. I mean, Chase Hooper's like, 15 years old? He's got a long way to go. Sodiq's my guy, though. Explosive, powerful. One of the best contender series fights I've ever seen against Mike Davis, who's also a stud. This guy's really good, and he's coming off that loss almost a year ago to Arnold Allen. But I rewatched that fight recently, and it was a lot closer than people give Sodiq credit for. Me, Sodiq got dropped in round 1 and 2, battled back. Round 3 was his best round, so cardio checks out. He's explosive. He's powerful. Caceres, I think, has only been knocked out or finished by TKO once. Usually he gets finished by sub. Haven't really seen that in Sodiq's game. I can understand why a lot of people are in Caceres here as the underdog darling, but I'm a Sodiq guy. I'm a believer in Sodiq Yusuff. I like him by decision. I think Caceres is going to hold up well. I'm going to take Sodiq by decision.
I love you giving the method of victory, even though it's not required. Chase Hooper's whiter than you, by the way, Bri.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I love it. Yeah. Alex Caceres is on some like Jim Miller shit right now. He's competed 25 times in the UFC. He's won 5 in a row, been on the roster longer than me, over a decade. 9-4 since returning to the featherweight division full time, Ken Flo. What do you think he has for Sodiq Yusuff?
Geez, I've been really impressed with Caceres and his ability to improve in all areas. I trained with Caceres early on in his career, so he's definitely come a long way, man. And he's fought a lot smarter as well. Can he beat a guy like Sodiq Yusuff, though? I don't think so. I think Sodiq has him in a few different departments. I don't think he has him in the grappling department. I think Caceres is probably better there. But Caceres does have an unorthodox approach, which could throw off some people. I don't think it's going to throw off Sodiq Yusuff enough, though. I like Sodiq here.
All right, co-main event. Ken Flo leads here. A couple of ranked bantamweights. 14th ranked Song Yadong taking on number 10 Magic Marlon Moraes. Yadong minus 260, Moraes plus 210. Was looking at Moraes' strength of schedule today, Kenny. Just absurd. That's my favorite name to hear you say, by the way. But he's winless now dating to 2019. He's lost 3 in a row. Last fight for him, UFC 266, a loss to Merab Dvalishvili. Yadong on the other side, just 1 loss in 9 UFC appearances, but he's been in a lot of close fights. And I do know that Moraes has spent some time in Thailand training for this fight. What are your thoughts, Kenny, on the co-main event?
Yeah, geez. Moraes has such a great offensive arsenal. When he's on his game, man, he is capable of beating anyone in his weight class. I truly believe that. The problem is he's short on confidence right now, and I think it is kind of bringing him down this rabbit hole that has really turned him into a completely different fighter. So I think he's a little gun shy right now, which is not great. Has he gotten over that mental hurdle? I don't know. He's still going to be super dangerous just based on his speed alone. Man, is he fast. Man, is he powerful. And he's got a lot of weapons on the feet. And early on, you really got to watch out. So he could win this fight early. There's no question about it. But it's especially difficult, just like how Edson Barbosa has experienced this, when someone has the blueprint on you. Once they've clearly identified a weakness and an approach and a game plan that has been proven, it's going to be hard to make those adjustments. And it's a little concerning that we haven't seen those adjustments made by Marlon Moraes right now, no matter what camp he's with. I like the dong here. I think Song Yadong is going to get it done.
So I mentioned the strength of schedule, Brian, for Magic Marlon Moraes, and not that this is an easy fight, but certainly on paper, it seems to be a little bit of a let up compared to the gauntlet where he's fought only top 6 competition since he touched foot in the UFC. What are your thoughts on Moraes here trying to sort of kickstart something against Song Yadong?
Yeah, this is the fight. Every time I dig into these guys, I can't believe Song Yadong's 24. I know that gets mentioned like every time, and he's got so many fights. And Marlon Moraes is only 33. And the past couple fights, I've actually kind of called for his retirement. I don't like seeing him take that punishment. It looks like he's kind of unmotivated and getting put out. And he could be on a 5-fight losing streak if the judges gave it to Jose Aldo. Mm-hmm. So I don't like seeing fighters take, unnecessary punishment. But when he came in the UFC in the World Series of Fighting, the guy's fucking dangerous. And I like the move to American Top Team. I believe he was in Jersey with Edgar, then went to Top Team. And I like hearing him that he's in Thailand to really kind of maybe polish up his defense stuff because his kicks and punches are powerful. But Song Yadong, he's been next up for a while. We've been hearing about this kid for a long time. He's got 1 loss in UFC. He's got a draw, but he's got 1 loss to my guy Kyler Phillips, which was another close fight. And he's coming off a really beautiful knockout over Julio Arce, excuse me. And I just, I like Song's power here. I think his power is going to be the difference. I think his takedown defense is showing up pretty well. Another thing about Marlon Moraes is his cardio hasn't really shown up as his chin hasn't. But yeah, I hope for a good fight. I kind of hope that Marlon Moraes maybe gets it to a decision, so I don't have to see him get knocked out. But I do think Song's going to catch him. He's a big, powerful young kid. So I'm going to go Song Yadong by KO.
All right, both guys like Song Yadong. And Brian, I'll go right back to you on the main event. Number 5 and number 6 at light heavyweight, Magomed Ankalaev minus 490 against Thiago Marreta Santos, who is plus 360. So Ankalaev, as you guys know, has been on a tear. Dropped his debut to Paul Craig, but since has reeled off 7 straight. He's a 5-1 favorite here. Brian, who do you have? Sorry, couldn't resist.
I love the Paul Craig. I love it.
Scotland, correct?
Yes. Scotland.
Right. And we talk about Mike Myers. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. But the Scots got on me. Do they call Scotland people Scots? I don't know.
I think I'm Scottish too, so I think I'm allowed to say Paul Craig. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
Well, no, they really don't like the way Americans say Craig. As in like lost Craig. Or sorry. Like it should be Craig. And then if you roll a little bit, you go Paul fucking Craig.
I love
You
it.
sound like a complete asshole. Brian, who wins the main event? Ankalaev, a prohibitive favorite, I would say, but perhaps not.
Well, Ankalaev's my guy. I think this guy's gonna be shining about real soon. The only obviously blemish on his record was the Paul Craig fight, and he was winning that fight until the second left, but he looked a little not himself, like what we have seen. And he's shown he can do it any kind of way. He's knocked out guys. I mean, knocked out Kutalaba twice. I don't care what they say about the first one. If Kutalaba was acting or not, this isn't time to fucking be dancing like that. But also he's won by decision. He's beaten some good guys by decision. So his cardio's checked out. He has that Sambo background. He's in Vegas right now training at, I believe at Extreme Couture with Eric Nixick. He's finishing his camp up there. I like that. And Santos is a guy that I've constantly overlooked. I remember this guy getting knocked out at 85 by Dave Branch going, oh, okay, well, he's going to go up to 205 now. But that was the best thing that he's ever done because 185 was too much of a weight cut. He's never been knocked out at 205. He's a massive guy. And going up to 205 would really changed his career, and I loved it. But I really do think his peak performance was the Jon Jones fight. I mean, blew both his knees out. It was a very close fight. Gave Jon all he could handle. I thought he won too. I mean, when people bring up the close Jon Jones fights, a lot of people bring up the Reyes fight. I bring up the Santos fight. I thought that fight,
bro.
I thought that fight was way closer. But then after the knee injury, I know it's devastating to come back from 2 knee injuries. He's looked very pedestrian. And we've seen what a power puncher can do to Johnny Walker, and he didn't do that. And it really puts a pause in me to really want to run to the window and bet plus 360 against this guy when Ankalaev, to me, hasn't really shown any weakness. I think this fight could go to a decision, but I think you're going to get a better price if you go Ankalaev by TKO because Santos has been proven to be pretty durable. So that's my pick, Ankalaev by TKO.
And that's a good handicap. It is interesting. It's hard not to think about those 25 minutes against Johnny Walker juxtaposed against what Jamal Hill was able to do against him. Ken Flo, Ankalaev, Santos, to what extent are you a believer in Magomed long-term, and who do you have in the main event?
Brian's on fire tonight. On fire. He's got the tie-dye shirt and everything. Well, listen, I agree, man. I think that for Thiago Santos, since his knee surgery, particularly for me, it seems like he leaves his gun in the holster way too much. He does not letting go. What makes him dangerous is his power, his speed, and I haven't really seen that. He's not unleashing those weapons. So that's a little concerning, and he's massive, even at 205 pounds, despite him fighting at 185. He's still big for the division, but he's not utilizing that. And I think what Ankalaev has going for him is the fact that, yes, he can strike. He does need to be careful against Santos here. No question about it. Santos is still going to be dangerous, but he has the ability to take you down as well. And I think that's most likely what his game plan is going to be, especially early. Just kind of stifle and smother that offense of Santos, put him on his back, get him tired. Santos does get tired, especially when he's grappling. And as far as grappling goes, it takes a long time, man, to get good. It really does. And I think that for Santos, I don't think he's done enough to really make up that grappling gap against someone like Ankalaev, who's going to be the better wrestler here. He's going to control him. He's going to work that ground and pound. So Ankalaev should win this fight. And like Brian, I agree. I think he's a guy that is going to be a 205-pound champion in the near future.
All right, good stuff, Ken Flo. I think when I submit my retirement letter to Pahumpa with my jiu-jitsu, I'm retiring from jiu-jitsu. I just decided.
Come on.
Hey, Brian Petrie, MMA Takes Podcast. What do you got coming up this week? Anything that we should be locked into or what?
No, I mean, I do a pick 'em every week, MMA Takes Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. Yeah, just give my picks out.
All right, buddy. Great to see your shining face. Where do you live exactly? Remind me.
Cincinnati, Ohio, baby.
You're still there. I know you're a Bengals fan. I didn't know if you were still there. That's pretty far from Columbus, or no?
No, I'm going. I'll be there. Tickets purchased. Weekend set up already with the wife. Yeah.
You already bought tickets?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's cross check. And if mine are better, you can use mine.
I appreciate it.
Mine are not on the floor, unlike Bruce Buffer and Joe Rogan's, though.
I don't think I went floor. I don't think I went floor, but I did. I did empty the wall a little bit. So we'll cross check.
All right. Well, I'm excited to meet you nonetheless.
Awesome.
And we appreciate you, brother. All right. We'll talk to you next
boys.
week, my man.
See you, dude.
There he is.
Good work.
Brian Petrie with us on the Main Event Challenge. All right. That is it for today. Don't forget, remember the show coming up this Thursday if you want to hear Bilal Muhammad's thoughts on Colby Covington's big win. Also, AnikFlorianPodcast.com for all of your merchandise needs. You can also go to KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. I spent 22 minutes on that website this morning. I'm not even fucking kidding. It's all laid out beautifully. And I really do believe that if you are somebody who is a jiu-jitsu practitioner on any level, just go to the website, right? Check out the promo code, which I believe is AF15, but at least go to the website, because even a guy like me who fucking hates jiu-jitsu. No, I'm just kidding. I love watching it. I just don't like, putting on the gi and having, a dude in my guard and all that. But I really strongly encourage you to check that out.
Thank you, brother.
And millions.co if you want to get in on the One More Sleep movement as well. Best producer in podcast history, Cody Merrow. Thank you, sir. Thanks to our guests, Ray Longo, Brian Petrie. We are back with you next Monday. We will get you ready for Tommy Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, and of course, recap Ankalaev and Santos. With that, for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Ken Florian, I'm Jon Anik saying so long. Thanks for listening, for watching, subscribing. All that stuff helps the show. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, yo fucking later.